Brilliant. Welcome back, everyone. So we have 6 trainee presentations. They'll be presenting on what is one thing I would do if I were the next BOTA president.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity. Hash is my name. I'm an educational clinical fellow in trauma orthopedics in University Hospital of Bristol. I had a clear think about what is one thing that I could implement or change during this COVID situation. As we know, with COVID-19 and its variants, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and we're still counting, has opened our eyes on the benefits of improved patient safety. However, the good care and doctors' well-being is the paramount for providing a safe practice for our patients. So I had the honor to be under wing of Ms. Joanna Maggs in North Bristol Trust during the first COVID wave, when she was appointed as the lead from trauma orthopedics department to look after the junior doctors' well-being. When I was a junior doctor then, being deployed to other departments, she managed to find sort of a chain for us to keep the sense of belonging to trauma and orthopedics department, which is very important for maintaining the communication with each other in such desperate times. At the same time, it gave us the sense of integrity as a department, participating to help other departments. So she came up with the idea of trauma and orthopedic body groups concept, where she had the psychologist on board from the neuroscience psychology department, and she established the post-pastoral care services to support the morale of trauma and orthopedic staff. And this contained 3 main aspects. First of all, the body groups. So each junior doctor, like for example myself, which I was deployed to ICU mega teams, I had the opportunity to be linked to a senior orthopedic doctor and a consultant. And
Ashim, sorry, that's over 2 minutes.
Sorry. So basically my idea is to promote this idea for BOTA and have a BOTA body group, like a body program. So we have 14 deaneries in the UK, and not necessarily during COVID, even in normal times, having body groups for ST3s, ST4s, and so on would benefit the well-being of the trainees. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, Hashim. I'm sorry, your presentation, you need to work on the timing a little bit, but thank you for doing it. One of the things about bodies is having an emotional connection, right? Because these have been very tough times, and thank you for all the hard work that you've obviously done. It seems like you had a mentor overseeing the buddies there, but also you were all in the same pool together. So it was easy. There's a lot of evidence around how people behave when they're put under the same challenges together and how that brings people together. And so buddying up then, when you have a common enemy, a vested interest, you need the emotional support, it's much easier. For BOTA to nationally try and coordinate people from different regions to buddy up, what do you see as the challenges for that?
So the first thing is to get everybody on board is the most difficult challenge, because it's a very wide range of people to be connected together. That's what I see. Maybe it could be one of the difficulties.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's no other questions from the panel, then Hashim, if I can ask you to stop sharing screen, and we'll go on to Chloe.
So good afternoon, everyone. So as we know, BOTA is to promote and improve the training of all the trainees. So if I were the president, the one thing I really want to push and to promote is for VR, virtual reality, into training. So VR has been around for quite a few years and has been implemented very successfully into surgical training in the US and in Canada. But on this side of the globe, in the UK, it's not quite there yet. There has been a few amazing work that's done in a few various hospitals like Newcastle or St. George's, and who have started using VR. And so what are the advantages of VR? The obvious one is you will be able to practice without affecting patient safety. And for junior trainees, you can familiarize yourself with theatre setup and the steps of the surgery. And for senior trainees, you can benefit from learning about different anatomical variations of the patients. And most importantly, it is really fun. And so why has it not taken off in the UK? And cost is probably the biggest factor. It could be pricey and it could be difficult to set up the equipment, etc. And there has been studies that shows that in the long run, actually, it probably saves more money to train with VR than just the traditional way of in surgery training. And in fact, there has been surveys that have shown that a lot of trainees actually felt that it would be beneficial to have VR on board, but it was very difficult to have access to one. And to breach that, as a BOTA president, I would organize training days in BOTA's or BOA's annual meeting to demonstrate the technology for trainees and the reps to have a hands-on experience of the VR itself, and obviously to promote the interests of budding orthopods and to get it into the curriculum of TNO training. Thank you very much.
Fantastic timekeeping, Chloe.
Well done, Chloe.
Thank you.
Hey, Chloe. That was a good talk. Can I ask you, so you've identified cost as one of the potential barriers to using VR in surgical training. Mm-hmm. Can you think of any other barriers apart from cost?
So there has been a few that has been identified from a few different studies as well. So for example, one of the things that they mentioned is too much haptic. So a lot of things are too much vibration, for example, to kind of make it less real than it is. And with the technology improving day by day, it's actually improved quite a lot already. And the only other thing that it's kind of on the table that on discussion is whether there's actually a benefit when it comes to breaching into real life. And there is study that actually shows that for a VR training group versus the control group, which is training traditionally, there is actually a significant improvement in terms of surgical skills training, and so there is definitely benefit in the long run.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. Great timing, great presentation. Love the idea. One of the issues around cost, I don't know if you play any games. Are you a gamer?
Not quite myself.
So if you compare what the PlayStation 5 graphics today are with a PlayStation 2 game,
yeah,
then obviously there's a big difference, and it's not just a one-off cost with these things. So how would you make this sustainable? Because I put it to you, in 3 years, all of the money that we've raised to get this first generation VR set together is redundant. Are you trained by then, or are you going to help Anish and I put something in place so we can train the cohort who come through in 3 years?
So basically, with so the biggest two companies that's doing it is one is called Also, which is mainly based in the US, and it's been that's the one that Newcastle has been collaborating with, and they identify this themselves, saying that obviously like technology is improving every single day, and so the initial kind of setup itself is going to it's more like the program, and they would have a subscription kind of system where they would kind of constantly update it and as part of their package of things. So hopefully that would be kind of targeted, as in, because this is something that they would improve to kind of sell more. And
that's a great answer. It's a very shrewd business move as well. Thanks.
Yeah.
I thought about fostering orthopedic education. For instance, I thought about coupling consultants, UK consultants for their respective trainees, and like one consultant with 3 or 4 residents, and then they come in low-income countries, mainly in Sub-Saharan Africa, where they will spend around 6 months for a rotation, and so they will benefit both sides. So the UK trainees may benefit about very unusual cases, let's say like neglected congenital therapy virus, like infections which are not common in UK, and for low-income countries trainees, they also benefit for standardized expertise or how different cases are being managed on standard way. So, but also both sides they benefit from fostering research and also developing study techniques. I think this one, but it face different challenges, including how to find funds for sustaining it.
Olivia, that's a really interesting idea. Thank you very much. And it's something that we were actually speaking about at a meeting yesterday. Who would fund this? That's the biggest problem in all of this, isn't it? Who's going to pay for the trainees to go to the other country? How would you propose that it's funded?
As I say, that will be the first challenge we may face. That would be the good challenge.
Hi, Olivier. It's a really interesting idea, actually, and of course, some of it already exists on an informal basis. How would we, apart from funding and apart from finance, how would we convince the SAC or the BOA that this is? How would we convince them of the benefits for UK trainees?
So obviously the benefit would be there because, let's say, I've never been to UK, but when I tried to go through the literature, so here we have like a lot of cases of, let's say, crab food, neglected crab food. We have a lot of them here, but I think Chinese couldn't find such cases in UK. We have a lot of infections, osteomyelitis and others. We have a lot of tumors. So here there is a kind of variety of very cases which they couldn't find there. On the other hand, also they would be having hands-on because we have a lot of cases and the trainees are not men in the surgical field as the UK.
Okay, I agree with you. That those are very valid points. Do you think that the UK trainees would be taking away operative experience from local trainees?
I think yes, but I think both sides will benefit as also the local trainees, they also benefit from the standardized expertise from the UK consultants.
Thank you.
Great. Hello, my name is Omar, and I'm going to talk about reforming your orthopedic training would be my proposal as if I was BOTA president. So we all know that ST3s and ST8s are not the same. They're different capabilities, different training needs, but why are we all lumped together in the same rota then? We're doing more or less very similar activities. So my proposal is a bold one. It's to provide grade registrar training, to provide each grade with their unique requirements. So when you're on ST3, you're new, you need to master the basics. You need to know how to manage patients. And the best way to do that is when you're on call. And fracture clinics. Those are the schools of orthopedic management. So I think you should be doing more of that. And also when it comes to operating, you want to know how to fix your box standard NOF, your wrist, your ankle. There's very little benefit of you being in an ACL reconstruction because all you're going to be doing is holding a retractor. I think it would be more beneficial if you will be in the general trauma theatre, fixing ankles and hips, because that's what you need to learn. When you're a bit more senior, you do what we do now, which is a mixture of on-calls and elective work and trauma work. But then things start change a lot when you're ST7, ST8. Here, you don't want to be on call and do fracture clinics anymore. You've been there, done that. The educational value is much less than it was compared to an ST3. Now you want to be in that specialist spinal clinic. You want to be in that hip revision surgery case. That's where you want to be. That's where educational value is at. And you don't want to be wasting your time doing an ankle fracture, which you fixed 100 of them. You want to be doing the pilon fractures. And also, this is the time when you need to be prepared to be a consultant. You have to go to managerial courses, follow your clinical director, see how it actually is to become a consultant. So in summary, I suggest that ST3s and 4s should do more on calls, more fracture clinics, and more general trauma operating, and less time in very subspecialist activities. And on the balance, the ST8s and 7s and 8 will be doing less of the on-calls and less of the service provision, and less general trauma, but more specialist clinic and specialist theatre work, which is what they really want, as well as managerial roles. The benefits of it doesn't cost anything. It's just reorganization. You efficiently use the resources that you have, plus the trainees, have the right person, the right place, and give the trainees the type of training that they want, and it can be done in stages. And I think it's quite a morale boost as well, that you see as you progress throughout your training, your capabilities improve, your duties change as well. And that, I think, is a boost to everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Omar.
Any questions?
Thanks, Omar. That's great. So this is not the first time this has come up as a concept, I have to say. You know, something like my rotation was set up originally because the original rotations were 4 years as a registrar, and then you reapplied for 2 years as a senior registrar, which was the equivalent of ST7 and ST8, and those jobs were therefore branded accordingly. One of the questions I would ask you, and often you don't see it either as BOTA president or as a trainee, which is the trainer perspective. So I'm now a trainer with a great track record, but I just do primary hips, primary knees, ankle fractures, and distal radius fractures. And what your proposal is that I will never get a ST7 or ST8 trainee. Is that right?
Well, I wouldn't say never, but the majority of the time, yes, you'll be training the more junior registrars because you can't make absolute things. There's always going to be some amount of flexibility. But the vast majority of the time, yes.
Okay, and Mr. Sangha, so obviously you'll sort me out. What about Mr. Sangarajka and Miss Bose?
Yeah, so as for example, pediatrics, you would rather have an ST7 or ST8 to maybe do the pelvic osteotomy rather than have an ST3 who will just be holding the retractor doing the pelvic osteotomy. Because I don't think any consultant will let an ST3 do a pelvic osteotomy, but they might let the ST8 do it. So I think that it's having, like I said, the right person, the right place.
I'm slightly pulling your leg. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
Hey, Omar.
Oh, sorry, after you, Deepa.
Sorry, Anish. Sorry, I butted in.
Oh no, go for it. Go for it.
Hi, Omar. As Mr. Achan was saying, it's not a new concept, but it's very interesting. And I mean, I think we could talk about this all afternoon. So my question is, you said you might not let an ST3 do a pelvic osteotomy. So I do a lot of complex stuff. In fact, I probably do mostly complex stuff. Do you think that an ST3 could do a tibial non-union with a circular frame?
I think they could, but they require, it's a very didactic way of doing it because you have to, the trainer will go every single step with the trainee. And how often is that ST3 going to be doing a tibial non-union? Whereas when you're ST7, ST8, you've fixed 100 tibias before, you know how to do it. And then when you go with your trainer, it will be of much more value to you because they're only going to give you small tips of the trade here and there. You know how to do it. You might have done it before and you're excelling at how you do your tibial frame. So I think as an ST8, I would benefit a lot more from doing that than as an ST3.
I'll come back to what Mr. Achan was saying, is that I venture to suggest that it all depends on how you're taught.
True, yes. Trainers are different and trainees are different.
Exactly. So I'll stop there so that you can be asked more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. It's the boring practicalities, Omar, because actually I think there's a lot to be said for your system, and some of that's already in place, isn't it? We try and put senior trainees into the jobs they want. But in terms of your pattern of on-call, were you saying that the senior trainees don't do general on-call?
No, so they will do, but much less than they would as an ST3 and a 4. So there is a certain balance change.
Yeah, so I've got 13 trainees in a department. And what I might say is, okay, the 9 ST3s to 5s are going to be doing their on-call and a 1 in 9 rather than the 1 in 13. And the senior guys might be doing a 1 in 6. Do you think that might create that inequality might create resentment?
Well, I think if all the trainees know that this is what I have to do at this part of my training, but when then I become the ST7 and 8, then I'll be doing the good stuff, doing what I want to do. So you're not always going to be in this level. You're going to improve. And when you do become senior, then you can relish all the hard work that you've put before, and then you can spend that extra time doing what you really want to do.
Just to clarify, Omar, you're ST6 about to become ST7, is that right?
Yes, yeah. But I doubt that system will change tomorrow.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Omar. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Omar. Next, we've got MR Chowdhury.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic.
All the way from San Francisco.
Hi, Mr. Achan. So my name is Mahbub Chowdhury. I'm a Barts graduate. Mr. Achan was actually one of my inspirations to pursue orthopedics, and I'm very pleased to speak in front of this distinguished panel. Now, what is the one policy that I would change and implement? And I'm going to be talking about the Constitution, the BOTA Constitution. So BOTA was initially set up in 1987 under the direction of Richard Rawlins, and it was entitled Planning a Career in Orthopedic Surgery. And the reason why we're joined in BOTA is to have a good time and to learn a bit about orthopedics. So I've had a very profound look at the Constitution, and it only has 8 subheadings. If we compare it to our plastics colleagues, BATPRAS, they've got 73 subheadings. The neurosurgeons, however, have a paltry 7. So what's missing from our Constitution? Well, we actually don't have anything that talks about how we actually go about our business. So we don't talk about voting. We don't talk about how we conduct proceedings of general meetings or councils, elections, and you might be thinking, why do we know how? Why are we squaring the circle? Why are we doing things that we already do? Why do you want to change it? It's not about changing business per se. It's about codifying the Constitution. So the Constitution is essentially a set of principles and provisions by which an organization is governed. And it's really important that we actually go back to the drawing board and say, how are we as a trainee organization going to conduct ourselves, conduct our business in order essentially to say that we are the future of orthopedics in the UK. Professionalism comes to mind, and it's a central tenet of our daily practice. So how are we actually going to do this? We're going to do this by convening an extraordinary general meeting and allow the members to have a say regarding the constitutional amendments. I was about to start off my speech by saying I have a dream. I think Mr. Achan took that, but I will finish with George Washington's quote. And that quote is, "The Constitution is the guide that I will never abandon." Thank you.
Thanks, Mahmood. It's good to see you again. Let me ask you, so if you got this constitutional change, it's a hard sell because obviously, you need to become BOTA president to try and push that through. What is the one thing that you would do once you had an amended constitution? What is the current constitution stopping you from doing?
I think the thing that I've recognized is that the website actually has lots of things on it that the Constitution doesn't. So say, for example, our plastics colleagues, their website integrates the Constitution. And I think it's really, really important as an organization to ratify that and codify that. I know,
I have to say, I don't disagree with you at all. I think it is important for any organization, but it almost seems like if you were BOTA president, you could just delegate the admin team to just sort that out so it correlates up and maybe bring it up as an agenda item. Is that really going to be your ticket that says all the followers are going to follow because this is leadership?
I think what it will allow is the members to have a say on how to amend the Constitution. Say, for example, lots of great ideas about robotics, social media, etc. Some of these ideas haven't actually been touched upon, or they haven't actually been
okay, so I mean, that's exactly my point. So if your presentation had been around robotics and social media and how the current Constitution is stopping that from flourishing, that would have been a separate agenda, right? I think in terms of selling it to me as your one thing is to change the Constitution when I haven't really heard why is slightly puzzling. But great presentation.
If I have one thing to say to reply to that is, I think it's really, really important as an organization to have a memorandum of and a constitution that reflects how, as a trainee organization, we intend to operate. And I think it's really important to do that. By saying we're going to do that, also we're reflecting the fact that the devil is in the detail, and that we're going to act very, very businesslike.
Can I just ask, mate? It was a fantastic presentation. I think one of the things you should always do if you're in a situation like this, competing with others, is blow smoke up one of the panelists' arse. Okay? That's a good start. But in terms of constitutions, which do you think is more likely to be read by the members? The one that's got 7 points or the one that's got 93?
I think that's a loaded question, firstly. I'd probably say...
And now you're insulting one of the panelists.
I'd probably say I'd like to be a part of an organization that's thorough. We're always competing with our plastics colleagues. It was probably a toss between plastics and orthopedics. And one thing that I learned about orthopedics is it's about the detail. We're actually renowned for not being, not having attention to detail, but actually we are. And the more I progress in my career, I think, the devil is actually in the detail. So it would all start by going back to the drawing board and saying, look, this is what we stand for, and this is how we're going to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mahbub.
Sorry to interrupt. There's a couple of questions from on the Q&A. So Roshana has posed a question. So she would like to know that in a proper democratic institution, does it really give she's saying a proper democratic institution gives trainees a really representative voice. I think that's what she wanted to say. I don't
think it's a question. I think she had a question that I answered earlier, which is in the answered ones where she was just making the point. I completely agree with the Constitution point. It allows it to be democratic truly. It's very dangerous for the panelists, particularly the consultants, to get involved in BOTA politics. I think Anish was just tentatively making out that you were BOTA president. We're not trying to disrupt BOTA, but I have to say, for it to be effective, you're absolutely right. I would suggest that getting the Constitution right is absolutely key for any organization to be serious.
And I can confirm that Roshana has come back saying that she completely does agree with him. So that's what she wanted to say. She wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. So if we can go on to Jason, who's the final presentation.
Yeah. So I'm Jason. I'm one of the SC7s in the East of England Deanery. So if I were BOTA president, I would introduce a system to enable trainees to rate their trainers. So we're all aware of the current difficulties we face as trainees. And definitely supplementing training with non-patient facing methods like simulation and virtual reality will make up some of those deficiencies. But nothing, I believe, will ever replace the training we get in real life clinical situations. From my own experience and from numerous discussions with colleagues, we know that there's variability in the training we receive based on the trainers we rotate through. I believe that trainees should rotate through trainers where you are assured they'll receive high quality training. So as BOTA president, I would introduce a system which allows deaneries to create a matrix of trainers available to their trainees. Trainees at the end of their placement will be able to rate their trainer using objective assessments like the number of cases done and work-based assessments completed, as well as subjective ratings like their overall experience, perceived improvement in assessing patients in clinic, and operative skills could also be entered into the database. Other data that could be entered include details such as the type of work carried out by the trainer. For example, trainer X does primary and revision knee arthroplasty and soft tissue knee surgery. As more data is entered into the matrix, trainees and training program directors will then have real-time information about placements in the region, and more informed decisions can be made regarding placing trainees with the best trainers possible rather than the hospitals. A system like this doesn't require a lot of funding and simply utilizes the existing resources that we have, but in a more efficient way. It also allows trainers to assess themselves and may stimulate change in practice to improve their trainees' experience. Perceived disadvantages may be in the subjective nature of rating, and experiences may be different based on the trainee's individual expectations. There may be also extenuating circumstances which may lead to poor ratings during rotation. But as more and more data is included over time, these exceptional circumstances shouldn't affect the trainer's overall rating. So to summarize, we're all familiar with databases like the NJR and websites like I Want Great Care that evaluate a consultant's performance. So why don't we have a similar system to rate training? Creating a database which allows trainees and training program directors to make more informed decisions on who trainees work for during the rotation will allow us to utilize the many great trainers we have within our regions and more effectively to benefit the trainee experience and make every rotation we go through count. Thank you.
Hi, Jason. Thank you. That's a really good presentation. I just wanted to ask you, obviously, I mean, this isn't a new idea. I mean, way back when I was a registrar, which is, you know, far too long for any of you to remember, we used to have forms that we would fill out for the placement, not so much for the trainer, but for the placement. And so it's an idea that we've sort of flirted with over the years. And one of the obstacles that people perceive is that there will be some kind of backlash if there are honest reviews. So what do you think can be done to mitigate that?
I think it's difficult because you can't really anonymize feedback because you know who your last trainee was as a consultant. But I think you have to be honest about the training you receive. And a lot of us will probably say that at some point in our training, we've gone through a rotation where we think, actually, that wasn't a very useful 6 months. And with the current climate where we've got limited training opportunities, you need to make more every opportunity.
No, absolutely. I guess I was more getting at how would you mitigate against trainees feeling that there might be a backlash?
I suppose that comes from buy-in from the consultants and wanting to be good trainers and provide good training. And if that culture is there from the trainers, then actually there shouldn't be any backlash from the trainers. I think it takes a culture change, really.
Jason, thanks very much. I mean, to follow up from that, you are making a fundamental assumption that isn't necessarily, as a TPD, we have great trainers in our region extending out to your region, but making the assumption that they benefit from training is a potentially fatal one, I would say to you. And my question to you is this, do you think you learn more from knowing what to do from a great trainer, or is it just as important to learn what not to do from a bad trainer before you start your independent practice as a consultant? The question is obviously loaded.
Yeah, so I think actually a good trainer will teach you how not to do things just as much as they will teach you how to do things well.
Right, so I can tell you this, they can teach you and tell you what not to do, and you can read books about what not to do, but seeing something go wrong because somebody did something wrong is a huge learning and teaching experience. And I think there's something around the mindset here, independent of what TPDs would love to have everyone who's an excellent trainer. But I can tell you, for the good trainee who's got an open mind and a good infrastructure of support and enough good jobs, 1 or 2 bad jobs are huge, huge training opportunities. And I tell you, there is nothing like it. I mean, you will be in this position very soon, Jason, where you're an ST8 who's well trained and you're assisting the boss who's letting you do bits of a complex case. And there's a little voice inside your head saying, I hope something goes really tits up here, because I want to see how a good consultant gets out of that before I start independent practice. And you feel horrible because you love this consultant. You know, she or he is giving you excellent training, but this is your last chance before you're out there in the big bad world on your own. And once you are, there's no one to come and say, Jay, you can scrub out, I'll finish this off. I can see it's gone a bit bad, gone a bit south. So I would say to all of you, if you've got a TPD who's overseeing your training, your judgment of what's a good training job will only tell you what to do well and how to do it well, and it won't teach you what not to do or how to get out of something or avoid something being done badly. And that is part of your judgment development as an independent consultant.
Welcome back, everyone. It was a very difficult decision, but we do have a leader of the year. I will hand over to Mr. Prem Ashan to discuss the results.
Well, thank you, Pam. Firstly, on behalf of the panel and particularly the faculty, can I thank everyone? I have to say we were very impressed, not just with the standard of what was on offer, but actually the ideas which all showed a commitment not only to improving what is on offer for trainees, but a degree of innovation that actually, as SAC members, we have discussed in one way or another, which shows that both trainers and trainees are on the same path. So well done. I do have to say, both Olivier, I think in particular, some people struggle to hear from him because of the connection. It was a great idea. I would love to have heard it in person and clearly from him, because I think that enthusiasm along with a great idea clearly works when you're in this sort of Dragon's Den environment. Nevertheless, there were hawks and doves in the scoring. As you can imagine, I surprised everyone by being a dove this time round. It's the first time for me. But actually, when we totted the scores up, there was consensus and all the scores were very high. But the winner of this year's idea is Jason Patel. So well done, Jason. You came first. A close second was Chloe. Well done with your idea. And third was Omar. So well done with your idea too. But I'd like to say on behalf of the panel, thank you for one, engaging yourself, but also for the exuberance and the innovative ideas that you brought to us today. So thank you very much.
Massive congratulations to Jason. You will receive a separate special certificate from the program.